I have an interesting situation for you all. What happens when you have a family channel that is known for clickbaiting cancer, as well as exploiting their children in general because it's a family channel, while also having some very biased and rather unhinged takes on pregnancy that one can possibly have, and give them the opportunity to be more harmful than anyone could have ever predicted they'd be? Well, you get an abortion documentary brought to you by the LaBrant Family, a notorious family channel here on YouTube, which situationally has got to be an oxymoron or something, considering they care more about a fetus's life than their own children, because, you know, they actually clickbaited their kid having cancer. So today we're going to be talking about the LaBrant family's abortion documentary, so you yourself don't have to watch it unless you really feel compelled to. Because some of the things said in this documentary, as well as some of the things they've posted on Twitter, are just beyond harmful and deceptive, and we need to talk about that. The LaBrant family's abortion documentary is basically an incredibly biased pro-life documentary pretending to be pro-love that comes to conclusions based on personal experiences and specific women's experiences under an organization over creating an unbiased documentary that, you know, unironically allows for choice to be made at the end and the viewer to come to their own conclusion. Get used to me saying the word choice because this is a big factor in this situation. Take a shot every time I say it. I don't know, have fun with it. I say this because the main people that they actually decide to talk to are very well known to be pro-life, and there's no opposing discussion happening in this video. So if you would, allow me to be that for you. We're first met with being told how the country's all pro-life this, pro-choice that, and how we really just need to be pro-love, which is basically pro-life because it then goes to compare the numbers of abortions within the United States to the Rwandan genocide, the Cambodian genocide, and the Holocaust. Because that's just very pro-love, isn't it? I feel like it's clear as to why these comparisons are just god-awful, but in case you need a refresher, here goes. Genocide is when you kill a massive number of people of a particular nation or ethnic group with the goal of eliminating them completely. I can promise you, fetuses are not a particular nation or ethnic group. And you can't eliminate all of them unless you decide to pull some Zeke Yeager shit to an absolute extreme and sterilize every single person in the world. We then hear Savannah's story on how she was 19 and decided to keep Everly.
Just so many things going through my head at that moment, and just knowing how hard it was gonna be, but ultimately in the end how worth it was gonna be looking back now. I know for me personally, my choice was always to keep my baby.
Now, it's genuinely wonderful that you feel that way, Savannah, because you chose to do that. You're content with your choice to become a mother, and that is absolutely wonderful. However, not all people are in your situation and may actually have that same content reaction to having an abortion instead of becoming a parent. Because not all people have your life, Savannah. You know, the whole profiting off your children's lives thing for content. It's genuinely situational and based on several factors, including but definitely not limited to financial stability, that person's level of responsibility, current living situations, and that's what a pregnant person takes into account when making this choice. Again, I'm thrilled that this all worked out for you, and I'm glad you're happy with your choice to become a mother, but that just isn't the case for everyone, and it is quite situational. They then get to interview Dr. Anthony Levatino, who is a big anti-abortion, pro-life person, and discuss when life begins and the overall personhood debate.
It's such a simple question with such a complicated answer.
A few moments later.
I really do believe that a human life, that individual human being with that unique genetic signature starts at fertilization.
Which is truly an interesting thing to learn about because from my research, scientists do not have a direct way of figuring out how to measure this because it can be measured in so many different ways. And on the topic of fertilization, just because an egg is fertilized does not mean it will implant. Therefore, unless you're taking pregnancy tests, getting blood work, or going through IVF, you're more than likely just gonna think you got a heavier period. Which is why most doctors leave it up to the person that's actually pregnant to determine personhood themselves. And hence why we're always gonna have this debate. He then goes into how the idea of needing abortion to save women's lives is completely unnecessary because he's delivered tons of babies under dangerous circumstances through C-sections.
I have terminated, i.e. ended, hundreds of pregnancies to save women's lives. How many babies did I have to deliberately kill in the process? None, not even one. It's called delivery.
Keep in mind, he is only discussing late-term abortions, which are typically done in order to save the life of the mother. But the reason he would talk about that is because it's more graphic and extreme than talking about when abortions typically do happen, which, fun fact, is during the first trimester and is either done through medical means, such as oral medication, or through surgical means, such as vacuum aspiration. He also doesn't mention the maternal mortality rate within the United States, which is very, very high, or ectopic pregnancies, which for those of you who don't know, it's a pregnancy that occurs outside of the uterus in the fallopian tube or ovary. Now, if you couldn't put two and two together, the fallopian tube and the ovaries are a whole hell of a lot smaller than the uterus. There is no current way to save an ectopic pregnancy, unfortunately, and action has to be taken quickly or else it can be fatal. Therefore, ending this pregnancy is the only way to keep the person that is pregnant alive. So yes, abortions are still important in a medical sense because even if you don't like it due to choice, they're kind of life-saving at certain points. It then moves on to talking about supporting pregnant women with every option possible and goes into talking about the organization Embrace Grace with the founder Amy Ford. Basically, Amy says that Embrace Grace exists so people don't turn to the church last when they find out they're pregnant, and according to her,
if they end up choosing abortion, we don't want them to, but if they do, we believe the church should be a safe place for them to go to as well, for healing and for healing support groups.
Which I'm not gonna lie, when I heard this, I was actually very surprised. Abortion is not an easy decision and can affect the person who's made that choice in various different ways, so having support really isn't a bad thing. However, as wonderful as that sounds, I did decide to look up Embrace Grace online. I tried to find this abortion support she's mentioned, and it isn't detailed anywhere on their website. They have support for single and pregnant moms, and single dads. Nowhere does it mention people who went through with an abortion. And when I looked up my personal address as well as the town that I used to go to college in's address, they only gave support for single moms and pregnant women. So I'm really starting to think that this support for people who've had abortions in order for them to like heal and all that really isn't a thing like she described it to be. They go on to talk to individuals positively impacted by Embrace Grace, one of which actually goes mask off and talks about how selfish one has to be to have an abortion.
And to think that I would have been so selfish to think, you know, oh, I don't want to have another baby. Why? Because I'm so afraid. I like to shop. I like to do this. I like to do other things. I don't want to be a single parent.
For being pro-love, don't you think that's a little mean? The video then goes into the story of Texan Israel Jones, who had a medical abortion but still had their baby. I literally couldn't find anything online about this woman, so take that as you will. And that's the end of the documentary. Basically, there's clearly a lot of bias and misinformation in this video, which is basically more of a pro-birth video than a pro-love video due to the fact that they only ever discuss how having the kid is definitely the right choice. Now, other than the comparison to the Holocaust and several other genocides that are just clear, bright red fuck-up flags, this documentary is actually harmful to a further extent given what they are trying to support with making this, and that's pregnancy centers, which all the money that is going to be made from this video, or at least what's been made considering it's already been demonetized. Pregnancy centers, sometimes called women's centers, are places that people can go to when pregnant, typically by being tricked into going there as opposed to a Planned Parenthood, where they basically bombard you with pro-life information and where they tell you two things basically. Unplanned pregnancy, become a parent, or put the kid up for adoption. They are also typically very close to Planned Parenthood, which makes it easier to trick people into going there instead of Planned Parenthood. I personally know this very well because the Planned Parenthood I currently go to has a pregnancy center right across the street. They literally have like a bright LED billboard that talks about like unplanned pregnancy and stuff like that, and to come over there instead of where I am. It's only on that side too, so you know they're trying to get you to go from Planned Parenthood to there. To give you an example as to how these places operate, here's the info that the women's center next to the Planned Parenthood I personally go to gives on abortion versus adoption and deciding to become a parent. Notice how for adoption and becoming a parent, they talk about how valid these are with no risks whatsoever to it. You know, despite financial stability and how overcrowded the foster care system is amongst many other things. Notice how abortion is the only thing with listed possible negatives and isn't considered valid here. It's the antithesis of Planned Parenthood because Planned Parenthood actually does give you all three of those options to choose from. So while I'm sure that these pregnancy centers and women's centers are phenomenal for people who know that they want to actually carry their pregnancy full term, this isn't a great place to go to if you want to actually know all of your options, honestly. Now, beyond the content of the documentary, because everything just gets worse from here on out, the things that are genuinely gross are some of the tweets that have come forward from LaBrant. It's just not a good time. You know, LaBrant just really cares about children. That's why he talked about waiting for 20 years until a 3-year-old became legal. I may just wait 20 years for David Beckham's 3-year-old daughter, cause God knows she's gonna be gorgeous. You guys know how people got grossed out over there being countdowns for when Billie Eilish or Millie Bobby Brown was going to turn 18? Yeah, this is kind of at a worse scale considering this is a literal fucking toddler we're talking about here. He also made some comments regarding the situation of if someone is raped and impregnated by their rapist. That, guys, it's a lot. I'm not surprised that this came out of his mouth, but Jesus fuck. Very mask off. Rape is a terrible, terrible thing. I have much compassion for all victims. However, rape is less than 0.5% of all abortions. It is very uncommon. I would strongly encourage my daughter to have the baby. I would happily love and raise that baby as my own if she did not want to. You know, risking your child resenting you for making them carry a pregnancy that they did not want from a rape to term is definitely a fucking hot take. Even hotter to say that you would love it for them. Although I'm sure you're aware that your child may resent you because, you know, you're putting their entire childhood online for content. A woman is raped. That's awful. But how does killing the baby who has no say helping that problem? Nonsense. Now, if you thought this was a bad take, you'd be right. But don't worry, it only gets worse when they decide to, you know, be aware of the emotional trauma that can come from carrying this fetus brought about from rape and all that. If a woman must go through 9 months of trauma to save an innocent baby's life forever, so be it. Yeah, you know, we're making you carry a rapist child to term, but it's just a innocent little baby. The baby didn't rape you, why would you want to get rid of that? It's not like anything else can come from it. It's not like depending on what state you live in, the rapist can actually get partial parental custody of the child as well. I am not even joking about that last bit, and that pisses me off so fucking much. In certain states within the United States, a rapist can get custody of the child that was conceived through their rape. This alone is the reason why abortion needs to be a choice. Because, you know, otherwise, congrats on saving a fetus, but you know, a victim of rape now gets to deal with their rapist for the rest of their life. Unless they can get those rights revoked. That is a big stipulation there. Therefore, Cole, it is not just 9 months of trauma, it can be a lifetime. Now, I can't tell if these tweets are 100% real because Cole LaBrant just decided to, you know, private his Twitter, and because he's also notorious for deleting tweets, so it's very hard to confirm that these are things that he has actually said. So feel free to take this with a grain of salt. However, based on the content within the documentary, I don't see this as kind of far off from being something they'd actually say. The last thing I want to talk about is beyond the content of the documentary as well as what was said on Twitter, and that is kind of what Cole discusses at the beginning of the documentary, saying,
"This documentary by no means is trying to illegalize abortion. After this documentary, you're still gonna have the choice.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have your choice."
I don't know how long that statement is going to be true because of the fact that Roe vs. Wade is being heavily debated and abortion and legality regards it is being very restricted recently. Recently, Missouri had been taking steps to make trafficking abortion devices or drugs a Class A felony if you use it on someone past 10 weeks gestational age or on those who are dealing with an ectopic pregnancy, which, as I mentioned previously, this is not a viable pregnancy and can actually kill the person that is pregnant. That is a thing because they are viewing pregnancy as just pregnancy overall, regardless of if the mother's life is at risk. This was thankfully later changed despite the bill sponsors still saying that this was overall misconstrued, which you can't really misconstrue that, it blatantly says ectopic pregnancy. The recent Texas abortion ban occurs after cardiac activity can be found, which is as early as 6 weeks into one's pregnancy, which you will probably not know that you're pregnant. Pregnancy symptoms are very, very similar to PMS symptoms, and there's so many things that can make your period late or make you feel like you're not pregnant. Were you stressed this month? Fun fact, that can actually just delay your cycle, so maybe it's that. Not tracking your cycle closely, you might actually just be late. No biggie, been there, done that. Pink discharge that you think is implantation bleeding? Surprise, bitch, this is why you don't take 4 fucking birth control pills at once, because you threw your body into ovulation and are going to get 2 periods this month now. That last one was very personal because, surprise, I thought I was pregnant actually in January. I wasn't. Thank you, Planned Parenthood, for explaining that I was just having 2 periods because I took 4 birth control pills at once. There are so many things that can affect whether or not you want to take a test. So unless you're on top of your shit to a T, you're probably not gonna know that you're pregnant, and now you're gonna be forced to carry that pregnancy to term. And I specifically say force you to carry because citizens can now sue other private citizens for helping aid and abet a person trying to get an abortion. And to add even more to this, because as they say, everything's more fucky in Texas. In some cases where the pregnancy is not viable and will not survive outside of the womb, the mothers now do not have the option to terminate the pregnancy, you know, because there's a heartbeat. With just all of this in mind, I need to directly ask anyone who is pro-love, Savannah and Cole a very, very simple question. What is pro-love about anything I have just talked about? Where is forcing someone to carry out an unwanted pregnancy loving? Where is forcing someone to possibly die due to an ectopic pregnancy loving? Where is emotionally traumatizing people to carry non-viable pregnancies to term loving? Fuck it. Where is telling rape victims that they should definitely have their rapist baby that they could possibly actually have custody of? Any form of loving. That's not being pro-love, pro-life, pro-whatever the fuck you want to call it at this point. That is being pro-birth at whatever the cost. The LaBrant Family's documentary on abortion serves as a stark reminder as to the reality of the abortion debate within the United States. There's tons of misinformation and horrible comparisons, cherry-picking who to talk to suit your bias, and clear deception being used here with brief glimpses of the people talking going mask off. Not to mention the clear bias through Cole and Savannah's personal stories, which are beyond situational. You could say all you need is love all you want when it comes to unplanned pregnancy, but that's not really the case. Because love is truly wonderful and all, but to put it bluntly, love isn't gonna pay off that hospital bill. And you know this personally because you've made the decision now to homeschool your oldest child to have an extra pair of hands around the house to help out with things, as well as take care of your other children. You know, because you have a new baby on the way.
With another baby coming too, like it's nice having an extra pair of hands around the house, even if it's a 9-year-old.
Documentaries like the LaBrant Families often remind me why I am ultimately pro-choice. I do not care what another person decides to do with an unplanned pregnancy because that personally has no effect on me. And I would hope that if I were to deal with an unplanned pregnancy, I would be allowed to have that consideration as well. And to me, that's what being pro-choice is about. It's the opportunity to make a choice that is best for you and your current situation. Abortion needs to remain an option because people will choose to go this route regardless of whether or not it's legalized. And still, there's people that decide to put up their babies for adoption or to become a parent regardless of unplanned pregnancies. It is a choice, and not the easiest choice, might I add, that a family channel should not dictate, nor should a God-fearing person dictate. Not only because a person's God should not dictate every single person's actions and choices, but because this is a far more complicated topic than LaBrants are actually addressing it to be. Because this is not a black and white situation. And you know, I mean, if you have to deceive and misinform to the extent that the LaBrant family did with this documentary, it's probably better that this option is actually left available. But that is gonna do it for this video on the LaBrant family's abortion documentary. While I understand that it is very obviously a hot topic because of the genocide comparison, which is just fucking... I really hope people see beyond that and realize that this is just full of misinformation and dishonesty in general. And you know, that's not just a video with one shitty thing in it. It's the whole nightmare of it. I've included my sources in the description below so you can check those out if you feel compelled to do so. There are also more that I did not include, which helped me, you know, put things together. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe down below. I have a lot less controversial content coming, trust me. No joke, I was working on an alpha male TikTok video and then this shit happened, so here we are. That's gonna be next week. But until the next video, please look up things that people discuss that are so controversial and come to your own conclusions, because you really should not just trust a random YouTube channel's opinion on stuff. That includes me, by the way. I am incredibly pro-choice, if you couldn't fucking tell. Come to your own conclusion, just don't listen to one person over the other. Have a balance of the both. But until the next video, which I promise is going to be chill, I'll see you guys later. Bye!